StormWatch number 9, written by Peter Milligan, art by Miguel Sepulveda. Last issue was the end of the Gravity Miners little tiny arc. And this issue picks up with a new one called the Da Vinci Coda. And it opens up with Midnighter just beating up a whole heck of a lot of people, musing over the fact of, what happens when I like killing people too much? Like, does that make me a bad guy? But before we can really get that deep into it, turns out this was all just a holodeck thing. An engineer calls him into the main room to talk to him. And inside the main room, basically she lays down a tie-in to a Red Lanterns issue. Red Lanterns issue number 8, I believe, had one of them named Scalox make their way to Earth. And we don't know what happened to him in the main series. But in this book, she explains, like, hey, here's the deal. Green Lanterns exist. They like to think they're space cops. We laugh at them from our high chairs over here. But as it turns out, Green Lanterns also have Red Lanterns, and we sense the energy of the Red Lantern nearby. So I need you and Apollo to go down to Earth and deal with that. So they land in the UK, and they get to talking a little bit about Midnighter's problems, like, mentally. And before they get too deep into it, they say that Martian Manhunter, Jack Hawksmoor, and Jenny are all in Italy dealing with something else, so they're not going to have any backup. But we cut over to Italy to see why it's called Da Vinci Coda, and we have a dude who's just like expelling energy in the middle of one of the streets, and he looks like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man with like the different arms and legs and whatnot. And he apparently has like a force field or whatever around him in order to do whatever. But before they can really get into fighting, the guy starts talking and he's like, children? Really? We're doing children now in Stormwatch? And like, whoa, hold on. But you're talking like you're one of us. Do you know what's up with us? And it's like, yeah, fighting aliens and whatnot. I know what's up. And Engineer's like, okay, bring him to the ship because I want to know what's going on. And she's about to open up a door, but then Jenny's like, hey, one of my powers is dark matter, which I guess allows me to teleport things. So that's cool. And so Martian Manhunter blanks the mind of everybody who saw it, the fight. And then Jack starts talking to the city of Italy in order to start fixing it up. That happened. So then we cut over to Scalox, the Red Lantern, who's just beaming down to Earth as fast as possible. Apollo gets in his way, tells him, like, hey, you got to stop here. I need to know your business. And Scalox blasts some napalm into his eyes, which he, of course, does not take well. He starts throwing some random punches. He does finally connect one, which just beams Scalox down into the planet. He gets up, though, which impresses Midnighter, which then they get into a fight. As Apollo's trying to get the napalm out of his eyes by absorbing sunlight so that he can blast it out. Midnighter takes a pretty hefty punch to the stomach and is getting a pretty bad beating from Scalox, but before he can land the finishing blow into Midnighter's head, Midnighter rolls out of the way and takes a big-ass knife, and cuts off Scalox's arm that has his ring on it. He screams out in pain, falls to the ground, because Red Lanterns need their rings in order to survive. So that's a thing. But as he is down on the ground and Apollo's checking his heartbeat, he's like, it's not there. He's dying. And then Ninder's like, let me try something. And he just like reattaches his hand, like just holds it back up to it, which is enough to keep the blood going and like enough to keep him alive. So yeah, he's fine. And then Midnighter and Apollo flirt for a little bit because Midnighter's like, I'm so happy that napalm didn't mess with your eyes. It's your best feature. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So then Scalox is back in Stormwatch HQ. They're keeping him in stasis and trying to figure out what in the heck is going on with that ring. The ship comes up with the thing of, it's pure emotional rage. Like, that's what fuels it. And it has incredible power. So, yeah, regardless, we cut over to the Vitruvian Man guy whose name is... I know they say it in here. I can't remember. Anyway, he's a guy who previously did work on Stormwatch way back in like the 16th century, like way back in the day. And he fell in love with a woman, and the Shadow Lords, who back then were called Dark Lords, that ran Stormwatch, they forbid it. And so he came home one day and he found the woman that he loved dead, and he knew that someone in Stormwatch had killed her. So he starts freaking out, having to relive this memory, and he starts expelling massive amounts of energy. And he's just so upset the fact that he wasn't allowed to love. He was in Stormwatch and he wasn't allowed to love anyone. And Jenny's like, wait, hold on, for real? Are we not allowed to do that? Like, nobody told me that part. And the rage that he feels over losing his beloved causes the Red Lantern ring to bust out of stasis and start flying over to the guy. And his name is Piero Rossi. And the ring is like, Piero, you have great rage in your heart. And it's about to give like the Red Lantern energy to him. But then Midnighter just snaps his neck and is like, okay, not dealing with that anymore. To which the ring then redirects over to Midnighter and was like, hey, Midnighter, whose name is Lucas Trent. Hey, Lucas, you've got great rage in your heart. And before it can do anything, Engineer grabs it and puts it in another stasis field. So it's like blinded by rage on all sides. And he's like, okay, so good job, Midnighter. You stopped the thing. Imagine if a guy with that power had even more Red Lantern power. You're great, Midnighter. And everyone on the team's like, yeah, great job, Midnighter. We all froze up, but you did the right thing. But as Apollo turns to Midnighter, Midnighter's just walking out of the room. He heads back to the holodeck, and he's like, I mean, I know I did the right thing. I know I did. Like, of course, but should I have really liked doing it that much? I'm the killer. I'm a sociopath. Like, what am I doing here? What happens when I let that control me? And in the holodeck, we see Batman, like a hologram version of Batman, show up. And he thinks that the moment that he starts to get too deep into it, they're going to try to get rid of him. And Engineer calls Midnighter back up to the deck because there seems to be some sort of problem. So yeah, that's it. Solid. It's just a nice little Midnighter insight story. It ties in with the Red Lanterns, which, judging off the cover of the next issue, seems like it's going to be a recurring thing. So we will get back to that. But no, it does a lot with just a small amount of pages, and pretty much, if you didn't read the Red Lanterns, you weren't really that surprised either. It sent you in with a good amount of information going into the fight. So overall, very well done. I'm going to go ahead and give this one I'll give it a 7.5. My only real drawbacks from it are that this dude who was previously with Stormwatch and then he just conveniently shows up here. They even say it's like, why is he here now? He laid low for 500 years. Why did he just show up now? Which, yeah, it's a little bit of a pull just in order to introduce some more dramatic whatevers. But it's solid. It's still solid throughout, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this weird little mini crossover continues.